Italian Cooking, where you see cooking from my point of view. So when I was planning Sunday dinner for my family, I was going to make Aretina Chicken, or pollo all'Aretina, that you saw in the last episode, and I really needed a side dish to go with it. And when you go to a lot of Italian restaurants and you get like chicken piccata or chicken marsala, often they will offer a tomato-based pasta as the side. Well, I was in the mood for gnocchi, so I thought, boom, baked tomato basil gnocchi. What a great side dish to pair with this creamy chicken dish. So this is kind of my own twist on the sauce. Started with the basic sauce that we've made a lot of times. Hit it with some basil. Use a little bit of Panko breadcrumbs over the gnocchi before I put it in the oven to give it that little crisp element, a little crunch to it. So turned out really good. So let's take a look at our ingredients.
We're going to start with a very, very simple sauce. We're probably going to use about 1.5 cans of our peeled tomatoes. Now we'll run these through our food processor. We're going to use 1/4 of the onion, maybe 2 or 3 cloves of garlic. You probably would be best served to have fresh basil, but I have the lightly dried basil, so I'm going to use that. We're probably going to need some tomato paste to thicken this as well. Now, in our sauce, we are going to add 1/4 cup of a dry white wine. Of course, we always have olive oil as for sweating our onion. Now, our sauce. What we're going to do is prep that, get it ready, and just leave it on the stove. Then, once our sauce is ready, we are going to get our gnocchi going. This is just, I got 2 pounds of gnocchi here. I've got some gas, so I'm going to do this in a little larger pan. We're going to slice up, probably most of these tomatoes. We're going to use half of the red and half of the yellow, and we're just going to cut them in half. Before we plop this in our oven, we're going to sprinkle some panko breadcrumbs on the top to give it a little bit of a crunch. So what we're going to do is I'm going to break away. I'm going to chop up my garlic and chop up my onion. Then when we come back, we'll be over at the stove and we'll get this sauce going. So I've reset over to the stove. Threw a little bit of oil in my pan here. Got about 1/4 of the red onion and some garlic, and we're just sweating these down. In about 3 minutes, we're going to come back and we'll add our sauce. Okay, it's been about 3 minutes. Our onions have sweat down. Next step, we just pour in. We're going to go for 1.5 cans of our peeled tomatoes. What I did is I just ran them through my food processor. Next step, we're going to stir this up real good. We're going to bring it up to temperature so it just starts to boil. Then we're going to turn it down on simmer for a ½ hour. Probably 15 minutes into that ½ hour, we'll be back and add some basil. Now it's just our test of patience to cook out the tinniness that usually comes from our canned tomatoes. So we'll be back 15 minutes. It's been about 10 minutes. One item I forgot to add that I always put in my simple sauce just to give it just a little bit more flavor is some crushed red pepper. Not a lot for me, some people like a lot. So I also added a little bit of salt and pepper to this as well. It's just got to simmer. In about 5 minutes, we're going to add some basil. Till that time, it just simmers on the stove. It's been about 15 minutes here on our sauce. Time to add the basil. I would rather use a fresh basil, but I don't have it. So I'm mixing in just a pretty good portion of basil there. I'm going to stir it in a little bit more. All right. So now we just let this simmer for another 15 minutes. Okay, I'm working on our sauce. I put some salt and pepper in it, added a little bit more basil. Now it's time to add some tomato paste because we want this to thicken up. I'm going to go with about that much. There's really no scientific measurement there on the tomato paste. Just go with what your gut tells you. We're going to let this cook for about another 10 minutes, then we're going to take it off the heat. Okay, our sauce is done. I'm not quite ready for this yet as I'm making a dinner. I'm going to just take this off the heat and let it set. So I have some water boiling on the back of the stove. We salt it to the salinity of the sea, as Mario Batali, one of my favorite chefs, always says. Got a pound of gnocchi here. We're actually going to do 2 pounds for the amount of sauce we made. I'm going to break this up. Ow, hot, hot, hot. drop it in the water. You can see there in the shot is another dish I'm working on. Keep your eyes on our website for that as well. Now the gnocchi goes in for 2 minutes, and again I'm making 2 batches of gnocchi. So 2 minutes, then we'll drop in our second one. Once I get both batches done, we'll be back and I'll show you the next step. Our gnocchi is done, cooked for 2 minutes. So all we're going to do is dump our gnocchi into our sauce and get things coated. Now I probably have a little bit too much sauce here, and that's fine because we're just going to spoon this gnocchi back out and into our casserole dish. But first, I have here some tomatoes, little cherry tomatoes, and I've just kind of split those. We're going to put these in, mix it around. Let's put them all in the pool, right? Okay, so next what we're going to do is dump into our casserole dish. So now all we're going to do is just spoon our gnocchi over into here. I'm trying to not get all of the sauce. Again, I made too much sauce, if that can be such a thing, right? We're just going to spoon it all in here into the casserole dish. Once I get this done, we'll be back. Okay, I filled up my casserole dish. I got a little bit of extra left. We aren't going to worry about that. First, what we're going to do, I grabbed the panko and I didn't want to. I didn't have this in the ingredients, but what I'm going to do is just shred some Parmesan over top of our dish. I want to add just a little bit more flavor. And I'm trying to go slow here so I don't shake the camera too daggone much. Okay, I've got a healthy spreading of Parmesan. So now we're going to come back with our Panko breadcrumbs. And we're just going to sprinkle these on the top. And again, all this is going to do is add a nice crunchy element to the dish. Now, another thing, and I don't have it here with me, another thing I'm going to add is just a couple tiny, tiny, thin little pats of butter to the top. So let me go grab my butter. Okay, I'm just cutting up a little bit of butter, very, very, very thin, and just kind of putting it randomly across the top. Now what that's going to do is kind of help this top colorize and crust. This goes in the oven at 400 degrees for 20 minutes. The timer just went off on our baked gnocchi. Oh, it's got just a tiny little bit of color on the top of it. Bubbly, bubbly, bubbly. Oh my gosh, that looks good. Smells amazing. Now it's critical you don't serve this now. Let it rest. Let it rest 5 minutes, maybe 10 minutes. We want the temperature to come back down. We want this bubbling to quit. It'll thicken, it'll draw everything in. Then we'll come back for our tasting. This looks delicious, and the smell, oh my gosh, this smells incredible. Got our baked tomato and basil gnocchi plated up. Let's give this a try. First time I've made this one. Folks, this is good stuff. I like simple sauces. I don't like sauces that are overly seasoned or overly flavored. You know, I want the tomato and the basil to be the stars of the sauce. And they are. It's good. Gnocchi has the perfect amount of chew on it. Turned out great. The tomatoes we put in, they're soft. Add that extra tomato punch. Get just a tiny bit of texture from that panko that was on top. And I'm telling you what, guys, this is good stuff. Well, I'm gonna gorge my face on this stuff. Well, you can see my nice, wonderful, messy kitchen behind me. So on that, yummy. Thank you so much for watching POV Italian Cooking. Follow us on social media. We're on all the major platforms. Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. You can find us on Google Plus if you're one of the 4 people that still use that site. Our email is povitalian@gmail.com. We have a nice webpage, povitaliancooking.com. Most importantly, click that subscribe button in YouTube. We need YouTube subscribers to get our page going, folks.
Thank you so much for watching. I really, really appreciate it. I hope you had a wonderful holidays, and ciao.